Hey guys, so this is the flipped classroom video for the Integumentary system. So we're going to start with that one. You should have your Integumentary system flipped classroom worksheet, which has a couple questions. Make sure you remember that there is a front and a back. Um, you can pause this video as you listen to it to write down any stuff as we go through this. So let's see how this goes. So the integumentary system is essentially your skin, and it's got some major, it does actually a lot more for your body than people think it does. So as you can see, it's got quite a few functions. Believe it or not, the main function is actually for protection. It protects you from things like mechanical damage, so like bumps, scrapes, chemical damage, thermal damage. It even is actually the first line of defense, as you'll learn, as part of your immune system, that your skin, as long as it stays intact, is actually going to protect you from getting any sort of bacteria or anything else like viruses that can get into your body and make you sick. So that's why you really want to make sure that you're not having hangnails and stuff like that. It also plays major roles in UV radiation protection, as well as you drying out. So it helps with like retaining water, and actually plays a role in making sure that you keep water inside your body. It helps with temperature regulation because of your sweat glands, as well as keeping heat in as part of the adipose tissue that you're going to learn about. So like the fat that's on the bottom in the hypodermis. It helps synthesize vitamin D, which is a vitamin you need that helps you with the UV radiation, stuff like that, as well as, all your sensory reception and stuff like that. So it plays a lot of major roles for your body. I would say you definitely need to know protection and the sensory, and probably like the temperature regulation, that it plays a role in all of those. Okay, so let's start with looking at kind of the structure. So the structure of the skin, they actually say that it's really got like two layers of the skin. So you have what is called your epidermis and your dermis. Anytime you see this prefix epi, it actually means above. So the epidermis is the layer above the dermis, and the dermis is actually the main layer of the skin that has a lot of fibrous connective tissue. The epidermis is more of this. We're going to talk about what this means, but it's essentially the skin that is dead, that's thick, that is going to just kind of be above the dermis. So it's your top layer. The dermis, you'll see, is where most of your actual blood vessels, sweat glands, nerve endings, all that stuff that's in the skin is actually found. And then there is what is called the hypodermis, but the hypodermis is not really considered part. So hypo is below the dermis, and this is actually your fat layer of your skin. So they don't really consider it part of the skin. Some people don't. But it's the fatty layer that's made of this adipose tissue. And adipose tissue is a connective tissue that's essentially fat. And this is what really helps insulate your body. It also helps anchor the skin to the muscles below. It's a shock absorber. This is what makes it so that when you run into a table or something, you don't like do major damage to your body, because you have this fat that's kind of like a shock absorber. It helps with insulation and stores fat, which is important for respiration, storing energy for you. So there you go. So if we were to look at a quick diagram, you can see your epidermis is this thinner layer up here that is really, really kind of compressed squamous tissue, which is an epithelial tissue. It's there mainly as just kind of like this smaller protective layer. Then your dermis, which is where you have all your blood vessels, your sweat glands, your hair follicles, all your sensory, so your nerve sensors that pick up like temperature and pressure and all that stuff. And then you got your adipose or your hypodermis, which is mainly just fat and stuff, which would be below it. Okay, so far we've talked about the main functions and the overall structure of the skin for the most part. Okay, so there are a couple specialized cells in the skin. So there are these ones which are called the keratinocytes, and then your melanocytes. These are named after what they produce. So you can see keratin is produced by these. Keratin is a fibrous protein. It actually starts in the epidermal layer, so at the bottom of the epidermal, and then these cells will make more and push these forward. So these are the cells that really produce the strength of the skin, and then they push the cells towards the skin. So if we go back here, they would be produced down here, and then they push them towards the surface, and then these become the dead skin cells that, you know, people will often sheathe off and lose and stuff like that. The melanocytes are the main producers, sorry, of melanin, which is pigments that your skin makes. And these pigments are what give you skin color that we'll kind of talk about. And melanin really is there to help protect the DNA from UV radiation to stop mutations. Okay, so your dermis, right, is strong, flexible. It's a semi-fluid matrix, which means it's got all these fibers. It's got collagen. It's elastic. Your dermis is really what they consider to be the hide, which turns into leather of animals when they dry it out. And like I said, it contains all these different things that become really important. So the dermis is where all this is, and that'll become important when we talk in a second. So how do we get our skin color? So skin color, like I said, is really produced by these different pigments. So the main pigment that your skin produces is melanin. Like I said, it comes in two forms. You have like a brownish black and a pinkish red. And these are found deep in the epidermis. It creates this melanin as a way to protect or block the UV light from getting into your body to do damage to your DNA. So this is why when you are exposed to more UV light, so like you're out in the sun more, your body will actually, as a protective measure, will actually begin to produce more melanin, which is why then you tan and you get darker. It is the more you're in the sun, the more of these pigments your skin's going to make to try and block the UV light that you're being exposed to as a protective measure to try and protect your DNA. Because as you learned in Bio A, if your DNA becomes damaged or mutated, then that can cause problems with protein synthesis, which is going to cause problems with the enzymes that are made and can cause major things like cancer and other stuff like that. Okay, you also do like from carrots, you can get carotene. Okay, and this can build up in your body too. Your body converts it to vitamin A. It plays a role also in helping block those UV lights, as well as vitamin A is important for a lot of your body systems and stuff like that. And then you also, some of your skin color comes from hemoglobin, which is from your red blood cells. But the main thing to know is kind of your melanin. And as you're exposed to more sunlight, then your body's going to make more of it, and that's why you tan or get darker. Okay, so number 5, where are the appendages of the skin located? What layer? So the appendages are all these things, the things that are found in the dermis. So the things like your sweat glands, and you actually have 2 different types of sweat glands. But for the sake of this class, the main thing to understand is sweat glands. But some kids find this interesting, which is your eccrine sweat glands. They release sweat, which is the majority is water, salts, vitamin C, antibodies. You have these all over your palms, the soles of your feet, your forehead. These are really used for the cooling. So this is to help cool you down as part of that feedback mechanism that comes up when your body temperature gets too high. You have these apocrine sweat glands, which are also there, and they produce sweat, but they also produce other kind of fatty substances, which release more of like the milky white type sweat, which is actually, these are the ones that really are activated at puberty, which really have some sort of bacteria associated with them. These are the ones that really produce a lot more of what we consider to be body odor. They both play a role in cooling your body. So that's one of the appendages of the thing. You also have sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands are oil glands. So oil is there and they're sit here. So here you have hair follicles that come up into your skin, and the sebaceous glands will actually secrete oil, which then helps run onto your skin, which helps keep your skin from drying out, helps waterproof it. It also helps soften and lubricate the skin. It also can help kill bacteria that's on your skin to try and keep it from getting in. This also, though, is what can lead to pimples. Either those sweat glands or these hair follicles can get blocked right here, which and bacteria or other kind of things get caught up in them, and then that's what can lead to like pimples and stuff like that. So 6, name and describe the function of the different appendages. So so that's what we're going through. You also have hair. Hair is there that can stimulate some kind of heat. The hair is mainly focused are built of dead skin cells. You also have nails, which are actually dead skin cells that your body can make. So we're not going to go as much in depth with those. A couple things that I do want to talk to you about, though, is skin cancer. So skin cancer does affect 1 in 5 Americans. It's caused by UV damage to the DNA, which, like we talked about, once that causes that damage to the DNA, then the cells will stop listening to the cyclins, which are what regulate the cell cycle, and the cell may start dividing at a more rapid rate. There are 3 main types of cell cancer. There's the basal cell carcinoma, which is the least malignant or least, I guess, dangerous. It's the most common. It tends to pop up on, as these little kind of shiny dome shapes. Most are removed by surgery and you're okay. Squamous cell carcinoma then is kind of the second most common. It shows up as these scaly reddened bumps. They grow rapidly and will get worse if not removed, but most are removed. And then you get into what's called melanoma. And melanoma is the most dangerous. It's very metastatic, which means it's going to divide very rapidly. It's pretty resistant to chemotherapy. And the key is early detection, and oftentimes they remove it and then try immunotherapy to try and combat that. But it is by far the worst of the skin cancers. So that's just a little chart. We're going to kind of go like that. So then the last thing I want to talk to you about is just kind of like burns. So you've probably heard before of like 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree burns. Burns are really classified based on how deep into the layers of the skin they go. So when you get a 1st degree burn, that's like you touch something hot, you kind of burn your skin a little bit. Maybe you get a little blister, maybe, but usually it's that 1st degree burns are your very superficial. All they've done is damage the epidermis. So you get a little damage to this first layer. The 2nd degree burn is going to go through the epidermis and actually start to go into the dermal layer, this top part. And that's going to cause more damage, definitely pain, definitely blisters. So it just went deeper. So notice it went through the epidermis and into the upper dermis. Okay, so you're not going to do too much damage to any of these other appendages. That's where you get into a 3rd degree burn. 3rd degree burns is you go through the epidermis and down deep into the dermis, into this 3rd kind of layer down here. So not the upper, but the lower dermis. And that's where you destroy nerve endings, which are these things. You do major damage to blood vessels, sweat glands, hair follicles, nerves, and really the only way to treat those is you end up getting a skin graft, and you need extensive treatment to kind of repair that. So hopefully this wasn't too quick. Sorry, I tried to keep it under 15 minutes. If you need extra help, you can either watch this again, you can Google anything, or you can go to your textbook, pages 933 to 936. All right, thanks.